so happy day. I know y'all want to see me sing and dance here. It's a happy day in the Bree household. I just received my COVID vaccine, and this video is going to be about a little bit of my vlogging about my experience before, during, and after the vaccine, as well as I'm going to go through and answer your 7 most commonly asked questions about the vaccine and go through how I did my own research and how I came to the decision I did to take it for myself. If we haven't met yet, my name's Bree. I'm a nurse practitioner. I work here in Georgia in a very busy ICU setting. I've seen a lot of COVID, and I make content for nurses, NPs, and students. So if you're new here, welcome. Okay, before I get started, let me just tell you a little bit about my week. All right, we are in the middle here in Georgia of our 3rd surge. It is the worst surge of all. It is terrible right now. Wednesday was the busiest day I have ever had in my entire 20-year career as a nurse and nurse practitioner. 16 years as a nurse, 4 years as an NP. Busiest day I've ever seen, ever. Mostly from a volume standpoint. My service is at, we are at a volume that is double what we're used to, literally double. And the volume is challenging in and of itself. Of course, it's hard taking care of that many people. But what's really concerning about it is that we've shifted from, August, September, about 60% to 65% of our ICU census is COVID. We're now at 80% COVID. It is prevalent in the community right now. People are coming in the ER. They're sick enough that they have to come into the ER with it. Many of them are being sent home. They're sick enough that they have to be admitted to the hospital. Some of them do need oxygen, some of them don't. We have 2, count them, 2 overflow units outside the walls of our hospital that are full with our more stable COVID patients. The floors are full, the ICUs are full, there are no beds anywhere. I'm getting calls nonstop about transfers from other facilities that can't handle their patients, and there's just a waiting list a mile long. I mean, we have nowhere to put them. COVID is everywhere right now, y'all. So Wednesday was the worst day of my career, and I think on Thursday I just had like some parasympathetic letdown process where I was just like completely drained and disheartened and like, I can't go back. I can't do it ever again. It was so awful. And then I got the call. And this is the part of the video where if I was very good at post-video editing, there would be like angels descending and wings and doves flying, and it'd be like, oh, the cavalry has arrived. I got the email that I could sign up for the vaccine. It had just become available at my hospital, and they were starting with, the most exposed people first. So I was, of course, higher on that list because I'm up in there every day, and I could sign up to take it. So that was a happy moment, and that turned around that funk that I was in. So I went and got my shot the next day. I went in to get my shot Friday morning. It was mostly providers in that group. We all had to wait a little bit to go in. You get your shot, then you have to wait 15 minutes if you've never had an allergic reaction before. I think it's up to 30 minutes if you have had an allergic reaction before, just to make sure that you don't have any immediate response to it. So there's a lot of sitting around, a lot of communion, a lot of talking. And let me tell y'all, the emotion was palpable. Oh my gosh, y'all. You're talking about a group of people who are so incredibly relieved and excited, elated, emotional to the point of tears that the cavalry has finally arrived, that they are literally begging to get this shot. That's the emotion in the hospital. I have said all along that nothing works for this. I mean, we have some pretty decent studies that steroids may have some benefit. There's some talk about ivermectin maybe having some benefit, but y'all, we're talking like tiny percentages of benefit. The answer, the solution to getting us out of this awful time of our lives is prevention. And y'all, 9 months into this, and we are all just still so traumatized and trying every day just not to quit, just to keep going back because it's so bad and so awful to be a part of. It's like you've been in this war for 9 months, and here you are at this battle. It's the worst battle you've been in, and you're losing. And suddenly reinforcement arrives. And just the potential for the light at the end of the tunnel is so, I wish I could put into words how emotional it is. And I'm not going to be able to do that for you.
So how'd it go?
It was great. It didn't hurt. It did not hurt. Y'all, I could barely even tell that I had a needle in my arm, and I'm not just making that up. It's a very small volume of fluid, so it doesn't have as much pain at the injection site. So the two types of side effects that you see are local and systemic. Local being injection site pain, okay? Injection site pain, significantly lower than the flu shot. I would say even a third, okay? The flu shot hurts. To me, the flu is painful. It feels like you've been punched. Half the day, your arm is like weak and limp, and you feel like you have to drag it around. Nowhere even close to that with this shot. So the local response, incredibly minor. They didn't even put a Band-Aid on it because it didn't bleed. The systemic responses you see come in two formats. So you have your concerning response, which is allergic reaction. Having an allergy, most people I think have allergies to the fat component of the vaccine, and it can be minor, rash, itching. It can be major, and you can have anaphylactic reaction, which is swelling of the airways. That is, of course, the scariest of all. It is incredibly rare, y'all, but it does happen. That's why they always ask you before you take a vaccine, do you have any allergies? The second type of systemic response you have is the normal and expected response, and that is your immune response. So the purpose of the vaccine is to introduce a foreign substance to your body and have your immune system then react, inflame, react, because you have a foreign object there, and it needs to create the weapons designed to fight it off. So you are going to have an immune response. And this often comes in the format of achiness, fatigue, fever. In this, with COVID, I'm hearing from some of my colleagues that they've had a sore throat that is self-limiting, meaning that it just goes away within a short period of time on its own. These things are annoying, and maybe you don't feel good for a little bit of time, but it is good, and that it's telling you your body is doing what it needs to do. It's a normal side effect. I received the Pfizer/BioNTech. These are two companies that teamed up to create this vaccine. It's similar to the Moderna. They both work on mRNA technology. It requires a prime dose, which is your initial, and then a booster 3 weeks later. People are showing 53% efficacy or response to the prime dose, and with the booster are showing 95% immunological efficacy. I am going to include a link below to the New England Journal of Medicine article that talks about this Pfizer vaccine. There were 43,000 people in this study. They were broken down into two groups. One group gets placebo, one group gets treatment. In the treatment arm, 8 people contracted COVID. In the placebo group, 162 contracted COVID. So it is demonstrating a 95% efficacy in preventing the contraction of COVID-19. So the first most commonly asked question, how does it work? Okay, good question. This vaccine is a little different than previous vaccines, and I'm going to compare this a little bit to the flu because I think that's what most of you are familiar with. Flu vaccine is a dead virus, a killed virus that is introduced into your body, and your body then produces antibodies against it, so it recognizes it next time it's exposed. Part of why this vaccine was pushed out as quickly as it was is because it works on different technology. It uses mRNA, which is a single-stranded genetic material. It's introduced into your body, the cells then take that up, and the mRNA then tells the body to start creating the spike protein. You know, the pictures you see of COVID, the ball with all the little spikes coming off of it. So it tells your body to make this spike, so a piece of the virus, which then flows out into your body. Your body goes, hey, no, you're a foreign invader. You're not supposed to be here, dude. And it starts creating the weapons, the antibodies, designed to get rid of this spike or foreign material. So now you have these antibodies, these weapons in your body, so that when you are later then exposed to COVID, your body goes, no dude, not allowed in here, out you go. So you're prepared to fight it off. One of the kind of underground conspiracy theory kind of questions that people ask or are concerned about is, well, if you give me this virus mRNA, it's going to then change my DNA and turn me into something that I'm not, like a Walking Dead zombie. Maybe I'll start eating people's faces or do something that the government tells me to do because you changed my DNA. Let me break that down for you a little bit. So mRNA and DNA are separate, okay? Within the cell, DNA is housed in an encapsulated nucleus, the center of the cell, the powerhouse of the cell. The nucleus is where all the DNA lives. If you think back to ninth grade biology, all those like strands that you see, that's your DNA. This is what makes up who you are. These are the proteins that, when sequenced together, are a building block for creating cells, which then turn into organs, which then turn into who we are as a person. So the mRNA that is injected into our body is taken up by the cells. It goes into the cell, but it does not have the capacity to enter that nucleus. There's no physical way in which it can get into this nucleus. There's no way it can interact with the DNA. So there's no way it could tell, it doesn't even get close. And then I won't go into the nitty gritty of how they both function differently, and there's no way possible that RNA can change DNA because it's sort of backwards. It's just complicated. Just trust me, okay? They don't interact, and it doesn't have the ability to change your DNA. Okay, so let's talk about my day. The day of my shot, I felt fine. Like I said, a little bit of soreness developed throughout the day, but it was very minor. It did not keep me from living my life. I spend a lot of time in my office. I've been working on an ebook, so I spent, a good bit of my day working on that. I went to Car Rider Line and picked up my kid just like I would any other day. I went on a lovely hike with my husband. I really love being out in the woods. It is what recharges me and gets me through this and helps me to decompress after the awfulness of the hospital. I do a lot of hiking. I was able to do that, did a good, I think it was 1.5 hour, 2 hour hike. No problems whatsoever, didn't feel weak, no headaches, no fatigue, no muscle aches, nothing. Did my usual activity. We celebrated that night because the mood in my house was very upbeat. Had a lovely dinner and watched favorite Christmas movie, White Christmas, and now it can finally be Christmas. Enjoyed some family time and went to bed. Zero problems on day one. The third concern I think people have is that this vaccine has been rushed out, that it's been made too quickly. Well, not really, because they skipped over the bureaucratic steps. They skipped over the review boards. They skipped over the regulatory boards because it's just assumed we're in a pandemic. This needs to be done. Yes, it's valid. This is a valid study. We should do it. Yes, skip this step. The financial steps skipped over. So they were able to just get really quickly to the clinical side of things. And was the clinical side skipped over too quickly? No, because the mRNA technology has been developed for a long period of time. That's been in existence for a while. So they already had the building blocks for this. They just had to start applying it to the COVID-19 vaccine and get our study groups in order. I do not believe this was rushed too quickly. I do believe it has been studied long enough to know what the short-term effects. Obviously, the long-term effects we're not going to know for years. But to me, we can compare the long-term problems associated with COVID-19 recovery and the morbidity that people have from this, to me, are like here. The long-term risks from vaccines, to me, for me and my personal risk, are here. So big difference in the weight of risk here for me. Side note, if you guys haven't had COVID, or if you don't know anyone who's had it, I highly recommend that you go to this Facebook page, which I will include a screenshot or a link of down below, that is made up of thousands and thousands of COVID-19 survivors, where they talk about all the nitty-gritty little things that people suffer from in recovery. Because I tend to talk about just the mortality, how many people don't survive, which is a small percentage, but it's bad. But maybe even bigger than the mortality is the morbidity. So the amount of people who have long-term, possibly lifelong effects from this virus, things you don't think about, like your hair falling out, fibrosis, permanent lung scarring, brain fog that prevents you from being able to function at work, and the loss of income from that, long-term use of oxygen, just on and on and on, the list of things that people go through. I like to follow these kind of forums because I'm not outpatient and I don't see that side of things. So if you're not exposed to it as well, I highly encourage you to go and look at those kind of things. These are the risks you encounter with having COVID. The fourth thing is you're scared of new technology. So like I just kind of alluded to, this is not new. This mRNA technology has been studied since 1990. It was first developed in response to MERS, Middle Eastern Respiratory Syndrome, and the original SARS. So very, very similar viruses, and the technology is exactly the same. So all they had to do was personalize it for COVID-19. Okay, so I'm on about hour 30 by my count since I got my injection. Thought I'd check in. Everything's looking great. I feel great. I literally feel no different than I did 2 days ago. I have like some very minor residual pain, just local pain in my arm there that's very minor, and sometimes you forget about it and it's just sort of a niggling little pain there. But I have no other symptoms. I've not had fatigue, muscle aches, fevers. I have not had headaches. I mean, I tend to have little minor headaches all the time anyways, but nothing outside the norm for me. I'm having 0 side effects now at hour 30 and feeling pretty good. I'm getting ready to go for my daily hike and it hasn't slowed me down one little bit. Fifth question, can this shot give me COVID? No, because you're not getting a virus injected into your body, not a live, weak/attenuated or killed vaccine in your body. It's the RNA that tells your cells to create the spike, and this spike cannot then go and become COVID in your body. If you have a foreign invader like a little ant, and the ant arm is grown in your body so that your body can then develop the weapons against it, that arm can't then go spread into your bloodstream and grow the rest of the body of the ant. And what is an arm of an ant going to do to your body? Nothing. It doesn't have the capability to reproduce or grow or invade. So you cannot get COVID from the COVID vaccine. 6, what are the ingredients? That's what I think most people are very concerned about. What is included in this vaccine? Is it something that's going to cause long-term problems for me? Well, again, we don't know the long-term effects yet, but the ingredients are mRNA, fat. You have to have, so lots of different types of lipids. The lipids surround the RNA because RNA, once it's in the body, is very quickly broken down and degraded. So it wouldn't have the ability to travel from the injection site into the bloodstream and then into the cells before it got completely eradicated. So it has to be protected with this fat layer. From what I understand, the fat is the piece of it that can cause the allergic reactions. Salt. The salt is what helps this solution be absorbed by the body. And lastly, sugar. Sugar is what protects this solution while it's frozen. The Pfizer vaccine has to be kept at extremely cold temperatures, which creates a whole problem with distribution because this can't just be sent out in a UPS truck in a refrigerator. We're talking commercial grade freezing temperatures. And that's why the logistics of this, the Operation Warp Speed, getting this vaccine out to the masses is incredibly complicated. I think Moderna doesn't have to be quite as cold. And some of the other pharmaceutical companies that are developing it, AstraZeneca, they work in different, I think it's like more like vector technology and not mRNA. I don't think they may not even need to be refrigerated at all. I'm not sure about that. But I think as time goes on, we'll get more and more out there. Part of the benefit to the mRNA was that we could get it out there very quickly. The vector technology requires more time to develop, and that's why that's not more mainstream. But if our goal is to get things out there quickly, the mRNA vaccine was the quickest way to do that. Okay, hour 48, I'm checking in while I'm pumping gas. I'm getting ready to go to the hospital, and I feel no different than I have. I've had 0 side effects so far. I am not yet a zombie. I have not grown 11th toe. I have not lost any body parts. I have no side effects whatsoever. I feel perfectly fine. The last question I think everybody has is it safe for me to take the vaccine? In my opinion, absolutely yes. The purpose of a phase 3 clinical trial is to establish safety and efficacy of a drug. Look at the link below that includes the article. It's in New England Journal of Medicine. This is the article discussing the clinical trial that was conducted studying COVID-19. My argument in all of this is we have to have herd immunity, and I don't know what the numbers are. You'd have to do your own research, but a large percentage of people have to take the vaccine and develop herd immunity in order for us to reduce the R0, in order to reduce the spread, in order to prevent this from being the pandemic level spread that it has been, in order to get back to some semblance of the life that we knew before. I want that so badly. I know you all do too. So I highly encourage you to do your own research. Again, I've got links below to a lot of the sites that I used and some videos that I think explain things in a better way than I have. I encourage you to do your own research and make an informed decision for yourself. But I also encourage you to recognize that the risk to yourself is a piece of it, and obviously you should consider it. It's your body. But public health, the prevention of communicable illness, is more about others than it is about ourselves. Odds are good if I get COVID, I'm young and fairly fit, I will be just fine. But if I get it and I'm fine and unknowingly spread it to my grandma or someone else, they're not going to be fine. And they got it from me. So the buck stops with me when we take personal accountability and ownership for what our illness can do to other people. That's my opinion. I know many of you aren't going to agree with that. I'd love to hear your comments below. Let's open up some discussion for this. Just please recognize that I am not an epidemiologist, nor do I work for the CDC. I'm not an expert. This is my interpretation of the information that has been given to me and what I'm seeing directly at the bedside. Go get your vaccine, friends.